The big story that we're tracking for you is the death of Charlie Kirk. He was a conservative activist and a prominent ally of U.S. President Donald Trump. The founder of Turning Point US was shot dead yesterday while speaking at the Utah Valley University. He was hit once in the neck while addressing a crowd of 3,000 students. FBI Director Kash Patel has confirmed that the person detained earlier in connection with the fatal shooting of political activist Charlie Kirk has been released following an interrogation. Kirk was speaking as part of his American comeback tour. He was shot during the campus event. There had been 2 detentions that were made. The 2 suspects since then have been released after interrogation by the police. There is a manhunt that has been on since the shooting took place, and authorities are promising to provide updates as the investigation continues. Ross Feingold is on the telecast with me. Ross, shocking development coming in from Utah in America. Again, the big question arises, who may be behind this gruesome attack that has led to the death of a close ally of Donald Trump, even as there are speculations rife in wake of the big allegations being made by the Trump administration and Trump himself calling it a political act by quote-unquote leftist radicals.
Certainly remains to be seen who was behind this, or what this individual's motivations were. It's easy to assume that they didn't like Kirk's politics, they didn't like his style of politics or his rhetoric, and that prompted them to take this horrible action. Unfortunately, violence and assassinations on both sides of the American political divide do occur. It's occurred historically, and it's occurred with greater frequency in recent years, and that's terribly unfortunate. We do see it on both sides. But President Trump's words are his view on these events, and it's understandable, frankly, that he would blame leftists because that President Trump is on a different side of the political divide, and Charlie Kirk was on his side of the political divide. So there's going to be politicization of this assassination, and that's unavoidable. There are going to be a lot of people who say this is a time to come together and things like that. But the reality is that this is just going to further the political divide in the United States.
Stay on with me. We're getting more updates now. Hours after Charlie Kirk, who's a right-wing activist, was shot dead, videos have emerged showing an individual running on a rooftop near the screen. In fact, can we put out those visuals of the rooftop from where it is suspected that Charlie Kirk was shot dead? And witnesses claim that the person was dressed in all black, and authorities say Kirk was shot from about 200 yards, likely from a rooftop. Those are visuals on your screens where the suspect, the shooter, the assassin has been encircled. And as per the authorities, there was a distance of about 200 yards from where the assassin took shot at Charlie Kirk. I'm also being joined by Mark Sutherland. Mark, what is your analysis? What do you infer from this attack that has taken place? I cannot but go back to the and recount that assassination plot against Donald Trump during his election campaign, and there are a lot of similarities in the fact that there was another suspect, the assassin, who was on the rooftop, and he had also attacked Donald Trump. Thankfully, Trump was saved and the bullet just brushed his ear.
Good to be with you. This is an extremely sad day. What we have to remember about Charlie Kirk is that he believed in dialogue, and he believed in the dialogue with people that did not agree with his opinion. And that is what is really, really sad, because it takes a lot of courage to do that. It takes a lot of courage to do that in the way that he has done. I think we have to remember that, sadly, he has He is left his wife with 2 young children. We can get, I understand it, into the weeds where we look at a shot was taken from 200 yards over 600 feet. If you're doing that kind of thing, and does that point to the fact that you are an extremely professional person in how you handle that rifle? But what we have to hold in context is that sadly, is that people then have forgotten how to then dialogue. And when we see people putting some awful tweets, awful comments online, it seems as though they're sort of smiling and celebrating this kind of incident. We are really, really in a bad place as a society. Mm-hmm. Charlie would speak and would hold court in many university areas, yeah, challenging the thinking. So there is lots of events, lots of investigation to find out what's happened, as you pointed to, people running across roofs, etc., etc. Someone was arrested, they've then been released. So these events are going to unfold, and at the moment, there's not a lot of, as Ross has said, there's not a lot we can say in what's going on behind the scenes.
Right, absolutely. Ross and Mark, please stay on with me. In fact, let's listen in to the officials who made those very public statements. In fact, there were conflicting statements coming in from these officials, and let's listen in. Also conflicting because there was all complete chaos. The police at this point of time are still clueless about who these suspects are. Who was the assassin behind that brutal attack? Listen in to those officials.
I've been in touch with President Trump, with FBI Director Kash Patel. We are completely aligned with our state and federal partners as we work through this case. Now, this is a dark day for our state. It's a tragic day for our nation. And I want to be very clear that this is a political assassination.
In fact, supporters of Charlie Kirk described chaos and panic during the fatal shooting that happened at this university. Let's listen in to those first-hand eyewitness accounts of the students that were gathered for this massive event.
Suddenly, it sounds like lightning. It was so loud. I thought the shooter was right there in the crowd. And apparently he wasn't. Apparently he was far off. And I hear this loud sound and I'm like, that wasn't what I thought it was, is it? I was like, no, this can't be happening right now. And we all ducked. Everybody got down and I instantly just started praying for Charlie Kirk. And the girl I was next to, she was bawling because she had seen it. She had seen the graphic imagery of the bullet piercing his neck and opening his neck up. And I can't imagine what it was like to see that.
I mean, the first things of the Constitution is freedom for life, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and both of those were taken from Charlie today. I mean, he was out there expressing his views, his values, what he thought was most important, and having a debate about it, trying to get people to talk to him about it and have a free and open conversation. That's all it was. And then somebody didn't like what he said and took his life because of it, for what you believed in, for what you were saying. And that just shouldn't happen within the United States, and particularly shouldn't happen within a conservative state like Utah.
I do not expect that from Americans. This is a country where freedom was founded, where people could come from every nation to be able to be free. And we now have a president who is working to bring back all our freedoms. And that small percentage, that small, loud percentage who wants to create so much chaos and fight, you can take away his life. You will not stop the movement because God is in charge and freedom and truth will prevail in this nation.
This kind of brutality reminds me the harshness and the lawlessness I have seen under communism in China. And I hope our country doesn't become another China. And that's why I believe conservatives must stand up against this injustice.
So basically, I heard a loud bang, which I figured a shot would be a little bit louder, but I just saw it hit him in the chest, and then all of a sudden just tons of blood gushing right out where his heart is, and then he like fell over and slumped down, and everybody got down and was screaming, and then we all ran.
You heard the one shot. Were there multiple shots or?
Just one shot straight into Charlie Kirk, and that was it. And I think they got him.
Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has promised to track down every single one involved in the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk. And he's blamed the radical left political violence for this attack, for harming innocent people, citing attempts on himself and the attacks on the ICE agents. I'm going to bring in Ross back into the conversation. Ross, that's exactly what I'm trying to emphasize over here, that the blame has squarely been put on these quote-unquote radical left individuals. Who is Trump referring to here?
States, there are people who dislike Trump. Nearly half the electorate didn't vote for him, and among that group, there's going to be people who are very radical, and some are even prompted to using violence. Again, political violence is not something unheard of in the United States, even though as Americans, we like to think of it as rare. We like to think of it that occurs far away from the United States, in countries with less developed democracies, for example. But the reality is that it does occur. And when the perpetrator is arrested, and they will be arrested, the chances of them getting away with this are very remote. If you think about high-profile crimes in the United States, especially in more recent years, suspects are usually arrested very quickly. They don't go on the run for years and years like more famous cases from decades ago, such as the Unabomber, who was on the run for such a long period of time. But in the more recent past, suspects are arrested quickly for a variety of reasons. They leave an online footprint. There's cameras that record the movements of vehicles. So it makes it more likely that the person will be caught soon. And anyone who was an accessory will be charged as well. If there are other people involved in the planning, in acquiring the weapon, for example, they're going to be charged as well. And if those people have a history of online statements criticizing President Trump, and if they could be described as left-wing radicals, then President Trump will be proven accurate.
Yeah, okay. Just over a year after the assassination attempt on President Donald Trump in Pennsylvania, his close aide has been fatally shot. What does this imply? How do we understand this political assassination plots that have become far too frequent in the United States of America? Mark, you also heard the eyewitness accounts. People were clearly scarred, and those who were really close, standing next to the leader, next to Charlie Kirk, have described it in very graphic detail, how there was a single shot that was hit on his neck, and there was blood that was splatting. And that imagery is just, just scars you. It's just embedded in your mind. Again, how safe are these public events that political leaders take part in? And do you think that there is going to be an impact and perhaps a fear that may have engulfed political leaders in holding these public rallies and events in the future?
You're absolutely right when you point out in regard to that footage, it's awful. On a personal level, that's the first thing I saw, and you're making calls to then confirm that. Sadly, that is what has happened beyond measure. That has gone viral. You make an extremely important point. When these kind of events happen, then the worry is that can we continue to hold events that we should be able to hold? If anyone then goes to this kind of level of violence, then it means that they are very, to me personally, at times they're very, very unsure in what they have to say. If you are not able to dialogue, if this is what you then go to, and as Ross has pointed out, and you have that, yes, America has a history of sadly taking individuals out, whether you go back to Abraham Lincoln or McKinley, etc. This on a personal level, it mustn't stop people being able to dialogue and have open air dialogue in this particular way. It was what Charlie Kirk did extremely, extremely well, especially when he would have those sessions of, ask me anything. It's something that he was extremely good at, because within what we define as the culture war is happening amongst the youth. You are then having to engage with that and ask them to look at all the facts and then come along and dialogue peacefully. But going back to your question, that is always a concern. And in many ways, whoever has conducted this absolutely appalling act, then the consequences of that would be, well, maybe this is what people have to think about. In the constitutional republic of America with alienable rights, being able to have free speech is fundamental to it as a society, as it should be anywhere within other countries, say like the UK, classes itself as a democracy. Free speech is paramount. But when you then start to meet the other side that doesn't believe in that and then seems to take this kind of action, of course, it's a problem. And recently, since Trump's first administration, you've had all the BLM, you've had Antifa on the street, as individual friends of mine then been on the other side trying to express their opinion. When you are dealing with people who seem to think it's perfectly acceptable to wear masks, etc., and actually bully and threaten you in regard to exercising your constitutional right of free speech, then we have a problem.
Yeah.
I hope that it doesn't shut down that dialogue.
Right. Ross Feingold and Mark Sutherland, thank you.